I'm just gonna say this right at the start. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is as close to a 10 out of 10 I have played in years. Years. If you have the slightest interest in this game, I would pick it up now. Stop watching this video. Don't look at Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, or anywhere else. Avoid the internet. Just play the game. Is it perfect? No. But no game is. And it's still absolutely fantastic, and I want to see more of what the studio has to offer, so the more sales, the better. Now with that out of the way, Expedition 33 is a turn-based RPG developed by the new studio, Sandfall Interactive. They are brand new, composing of some ex-Ubisoft developers, which people love pointing out despite Ubisoft. The total studio consists of around 30 people, though from my understanding they still outsourced a lot of work, so the concept of just 30 people making this game is a little bit embellishing. But nonetheless, the game is still very impressive for a brand new studio of that size. The developers are French, and the reason I point that out is you can see the influence it has on the game, with the characters speaking French at times, as well as the setting mainly taking place in an alternate France world, though I will admit my European knowledge is severely lacking. So the French baguette outfits, that's what they call it, not me, and the large melting Eiffel Tower in the distance will have to be enough to convince me that this is an alternate France, which is cool, because I don't really see too many games take place in France, at least the ones I play. The game is turn-based, which tends to turn people off, though I don't think that'll be a problem this time around. It has extra flares and mechanics that makes the turn-based nature of the game more exciting, and require a lot more planning and involvement of the player before and during battle, rather than your typical slower playstyle that most turn-based RPGs tend to have. Beyond that, the game has it all really. The setting is unique and interesting, gameplay has a lot of depth and variety. The visuals are absolutely beautiful yet melancholic. The characters are fun, and something I generally personally don't notice a lot in games is the music. It's also just amazing. Like I said before, it isn't perfect, but it's really close in a lot of regards. A lot of the complaints I have are easily tweaked and polished for the most part. It might be things that more so bother me specifically rather than being an actual overall negative. With that being said, the setting as mentioned before is really unique. You follow Gustave, an inventor of sorts, in the town of Lumiere. He is feeling down as he goes to give a flower to his former lover Sophie. They head off to a festival of sorts where specific people are given wreaths of flowers and head off to the harbor. The people that they speak to are focused on her age a bit, saying that she looks very young for being as old as she is. They reminisce about their time together as they head off. Once they reach the harbor, it begins. The world is broken. The Eiffel Tower looks like it's melted. Floating debris and large chunks of structures are just floating in the air, and off in the distance is a massive pillar with the number 34 written on it. The Gommage has begun. A large woman called the Paintress appears and lowers the count to 33, and people start to vanish into dust and rose petals. The Paintress leaves and the Gommage is done. The world has gone through a catastrophic event called the Fracture. It's shattered the world, causing weird phenomena like the Eiffel Tower just melting, and weird creatures called Nevrons to appear, as well as the Paintress herself, who is causing people to vanish. Every year, the number decreases by 1, and anyone that age or older will Gommage, and just vanish from existence. So each year, the town of Lumiere sends out an expedition in an attempt to reach the Paintress and stop her before every human on Earth vanishes. This year, Gustave is 32, so him along with many others, including Maëlle, a young girl who is leaving much earlier than she needs to, go off on Expedition 33 to do what 67 other expeditions have failed to do. And that's your plot. It is very sad and depressing with great urgency. Just with your characters, they have literally a year to finish their expedition before being Gommage. They also have to survive out in the Nevron-infested world, knowing that every other expedition before them has failed. Only Expedition 0, which was the original before they started counting down from 99, has ever even had a single person return. So the stakes are high, the mystery is intriguing. You already get an attachment to the characters super early on with the prologue. For the setting, it's great. The opening prologue is the best I've seen in a long time. It doesn't take forever to get going. It gets you up to speed on the situation quickly, as well as getting you to know a lot of the characters early on. And it does a decent job keeping it going for a while, however. This is probably one of my stronger complaints, and that is between the start of the game and closer to the end. The travels through the journey don't give you any real answers. You get more mysteries and some foreshadowing, but you learn absolutely nothing until the end of the game, when everything starts to click in. Otherwise, the story really focuses on either the journey itself to get to the Paintress, or little hints and foreshadowing, focusing on a couple of the cast. The rest of the cast are kinda just there, and aren't very important outside of some lines here and there. While the actual story progression can be light, there are a lot of cutscenes thrown about, where you meet a bunch of colorful characters. They are very interesting in their design, if not a bit simple in personality, and in terms of what they do and bring to the story. If they aren't directly involved with the main characters for the story, they tend to be very basic. Personality of the characters are fun though. You get a lot of good banter back and forth when things aren't super serious. Sometimes a bit too much though. You'll have scenes of dreadful and serious moments. The characters are battered and caked in blood. Then a little bit later they are joking about, having a great laugh. It can be somewhat jarring. They shouldn't have to be serious all the time, but they do need to ease it in a little bit better. Each scene taken on their own though, they are all great. Just side by side, they have a little bit of a tonal whiplash. Despite that, I was always ready for more dialogue between the characters and more story bits. I wanted to know more. Learn about the world and what happened to cause all this. You always have the ominous 33 in the background haunting you, reminding you of your limited mortality. Which leads me into the visuals. The game is absolutely beautiful. Every single area is gorgeous. You have great viewpoints of devastated fields and mountains. There are littered corpses, structures, and rubble everywhere, showing that the world used to be lived in. Now it is nothing more than a destroyed remnant of its former self. It is both awe-inspiring as well as heartbreaking. The enemy designs are all unique as well, ranging from small creatures to massive giants that tower over skyscrapers just laying about. There is a little problem I have with the terrain that I'll talk about more during the mechanics, but before that, along with the wonderful visuals, the music is also the best I've heard in a game in a long time. I don't think I've had a soundtrack for a game hit me as hard as this one. Maybe ever. I've never really been a big sound or music person, so for me to say that means something. Nearly every track is a banger. The boss musics are intense, elevating the mood depending on the boss. Each area has emotional tracks ranging from melancholic to hopeful tunes. It has it all. This is the kind of soundtrack I would play on repeat as background music for myself. Artistically, this game stands out so much as something top tier. Now we get to the game mechanics. The exploration is pretty fun. It does get a little repetitive on what you can find, but I always did enjoy finding it. Nothing ever felt useless except alternate costumes, but generally you can avoid those if you don't care. Most of the time you end up finding extra money, upgrade consumables, pictos, which I'll go into detail in a bit. Unique enemies for each area, and even some special enemies and bosses. So it never feels bad to explore, as even if what you find might not be completely unique, it's still useful, and the areas are always beautiful to look at anyways. You can find a bunch of old expedition logs too, so you can learn what the other expeditions were like, and even how many of them died. Checkpoints are even their old flags too, which is sad each time you find their logs. They also did the smart thing with healing items being similar to Dark Souls flasks, and they recharge when you heal at a checkpoint as well as the enemies respawning. Just makes it easier for players to use items in combat when you know they aren't lost forever. One complaint about exploring I have is you don't get a map. You have one in the overworld, which is nice, but in an area or a dungeon, however you want to call it, you don't have any kind of map. I like the idea of having to just explore, but a map that reveals all you explore would also be nice, at least after you finished an area if nothing else. With every area being mostly debris and destruction, and being fairly large as well, it can be easy to miss entire sections because you didn't see the route. It isn't the worst thing, but I ended up missing more than I would have liked in some areas because of that. And re-exploring is kind of tough without knowing where you've been exactly, since not every place has really strong landmarks. Overworld exploring is pretty basic, but it does its job. You get ways of backtracking later and exploring becomes quicker, and more areas open up as well. Pretty typical RPG style of things. The big thing that would make it or break it for people though is the turn-based combat. Generally turn-based combat isn't really that well liked outside of Japan. That's why Persona 5 being such a large hit was strange to me, but it had enough flair to make it interesting. Expedition 33 has that, but it also has more to its combat as well. You have your normal mechanics where your turn order is based on speed. When it's your character's turn, you can choose an action: attack, ability, healing item, gun, and special abilities. Attacks are pretty self-explanatory. You hit the enemy and gain some AP. You need AP to use abilities. Depending on the ability, it costs different amounts of AP. Each ability has unique effects specific to that character. They can equip up to 6 abilities, so you have a ton of synergy and tactics you can make with your party. I personally went with a burn build, but you have tons and tons of other choices. You'll have things like do bonus damage if the enemy has the mark debuff, apply this effect if they are burned, etc. Each character also has their own mechanic, and one person has different stances, which gives them different stat buffs, and affects their abilities. Another character has a charge mechanic that you can unleash for a powerful burst of damage. Another character has elemental attacks that get effects depending on which element charges you currently have. It is so much to work with. It's amazing. You can spend a lot of time mixing and matching their playstyles with each other to maximize their synergy for your playstyle. And while that is great for strategist players, and that isn't even all of it, continue that in a minute, the thing that'll make combat more interesting for players are the action commands. If you ever played Paper Mario, it's that, but a bit more intense and fun. When doing your attacks, you have to press the action button at the right time to get bonus damage. Simple enough. When it's the enemy's attack, however, you have several options. You can either dodge the move and take no damage. You can parry the move, which is a bit more difficult, but you get 1 AP per parry, and if you parry every move, you'll counterattack. But more than that, some moves will have special icons that signify you have to jump. And if you do jump, you can counterattack during that moment. And on top of that, you have a special counter type where things go gray in slow-mo, which has a different button for counter. And you do massive damage if you counter it, or take massive damage if you don't. Every enemy has different attacks. They each have different timing, effects, hit counters, etc. So each fight, especially new ones, is really interesting and keeps things lively, as you won't know how they'll exactly go. You have to learn to dodge or counter quickly, or otherwise enemies will run you over. Damage is pretty high in Expedition 33 though. though, so I can see this being tough for players who don't have as good of reaction times. I played it on normal difficulty and still struggled with some battles. Besides some super enemies early, none of them felt impossible, but it is easy to go from winning and doing well to losing the whole battle in one turn if you mess up enough. Some of the timing for dodging can be a bit iffy as well, and fairly strict, so some enemies I can parry them nearly every time, while others I'll struggle with dodging once. It really is just dependent on the enemy in question. Overall adds a lot more skill to what is usually just a strategy genre of game. You can have no strategy or planning at all and still win purely due to skill because of it. If you successfully dodge or parry every move, you won't take any damage. On the other hand, proper strategy and preparing will make it a lot more forgiving as you'll stay alive through more hits and take them down quicker. It's a great blend between strategy and skill without one overshadowing the other. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you can't dodge at all, you'll still lose. Same goes for dodging. You can technically dodge everything, but it's hard to not mess up once with how quick some of these attacks are. I think the mechanics will speak to most players, as long as you enjoy action in your games at least. You even get a little bit of shooting mechanics as well. As another move, you can use AP to fire a projectile. Generally this is used either to apply effects, hit weak points, or spawned objects, or just spend a bit of your extra AP. You actually have to aim though, which is fun, if not a little annoying with a controller. In terms of combat, this is the most fun I've had in a turn-based game in a long time. It adds a lot of life to the gameplay, making each encounter fun and not a predetermined outcome where the numbers are pre-calculated ahead of time, as each fight goes nearly the same each and every time. Each battle can end up with my party dead if I'm not paying attention, but as long as I dodge some things and keep my party planned out properly, I can make it through each battle. One other thing that really makes the game stand out for me is the customization. I'm not just talking about the large number of costumes either. As mentioned before, each character has a unique set of skills to them that all interact with every other character, so you can mix and match them to come up with different strategies. On top of that, each character has unique weapons, stat points to spend, and something called Pictos to equip. Weapons themselves have varying elements, synergistic stats that boost its damage, so things like speed will increase the damage on this weapon. Passives that augment your character even further are unlocked by the weapon level. These passives drastically change how your character works, and make some strategies much stronger if used properly. Stat points are pretty self-explanatory, but allow you to build your character in your own way. Speedy, high damage, tanky, or an all-rounder. Pictos are the next important thing, and probably one of the more important things for customizing. While everything mentioned before is unique to that character in question, Pictos are universal. They are like armor you can equip, giving massive stat boosts to your characters, as well as passive effects. On top of that, after 4 battles with the Pictos equipped, which I will say is a really weird mechanic and shouldn't be needed, the passives become something anyone can equip. While the Picto itself is equipped, the passives are free. If you want to equip it on someone else though, you have points called Luminous, where you can activate these passives on characters. Every level you get more points, and you can also use a consumable to permanently grant an additional point to a character. You can get so much customization with this. I was able to augment my basic attack to grant like 6 AP on a single attack instead of 1 because of the Pictos I use. You have so many combinations and different synergies to work with that everyone's builds are going to be unique. You can experiment with all these options as well. One thing I'm sad about though is while you can reset stats and ability points, you do have to use an item to do so. At least with the Pictos, you can reassign them as you please with no issue. Generally an issue I have with a lot of RPGs is that once I hit a certain point in the game, my build for a character is set in stone. For this though, I was constantly swapping. Finding new weapons and higher level versions of weapons I already have means those get swapped around. New Pictos means I need to redo my Picto setup, which then also means I need to pick my skills again. They just bounce off each other so well. I don't remember many games where I could keep rebuilding my team and actually get something new out of it. It is such a well-designed system. It isn't overly complicated, yet you have so many choices. I think the only issue is that it can be hard to really know how important each stat is. I don't know how much defense affects things, nor speed, nor might. Health and crit rate are the real only obvious ones. Could be a lot simpler than I'm making it out to be, but it does leave me a bit iffy here and there. Overall though, this is easily the best game I've played in a very long time. I've enjoyed nearly every moment of it, and I would recommend it to most people. Might not appeal to everyone, especially if they're only interested in limited genres, but I think most people would at least appreciate it. As a big fan of turn-based RPGs, this is such a breath of fresh air for a genre while at the same time introducing mechanics that make it so people who aren't fans of it would still have a ton of fun. Aside from some minor details here and there I would like to change, like getting stopped on all these lanterns and rocks on the ground, I think this game is as good as it'll get at least for this year, if not longer. I don't say this lightly, but I think this is Game of the Year material. I very much look forward to Sandfall's future games, and hope they keep making amazing games like this. The game is relatively cheap compared to other large games going for $50 US at the moment, compared to the usual $70 or $80, and it is worth it. The game will last you anywhere from 30 to 50 hours depending on how much side content you do and how difficult dodging is for you. Oh, also, this game has Only Up in it as well, for better or for worse. If you ever listen to a random guy on the internet for anything, if you have the slightest interest in the game, pick it up. It is such a fun trip through its beautiful and sad plot and entertaining and difficult gameplay. I cannot recommend it more. Thanks for watching, subscribe and all that jazz, and I'll catch you next time.